Beneath the surface of Plate Tile Dam, Belgium's largest artificial lake, lies a hidden danger, a force so powerful it can pull even the strongest swimmers into its deadly grasp. This is the story of two expert divers who ventured too deep into the dam's eerie waters and straight into the jaws of disaster. Christopher Godet and Frédéric Pochet were aces. Christopher, a 42-year-old banker from Liège, balanced spreadsheets by day and explored underwater caves by night. Frédéric, 55, was a seasoned diving instructor with decades of experience in Belgium's lakes and quarries. Both men held advanced certifications, PADI, open water, enriched air nitrox, and technical diving licenses. They were respected, meticulous, and known for their disciplined approach to risky dives. Their target that night was the Plate Tile Dam, a hulking structure built in the 1970s as part of a network of 5 artificial lakes in Wallonia. The dam's 4 turbines could move 400 cubic meters of water per second, generating enough electricity to power thousands of homes. But beneath its industrial facade lurked a danger few understood. Delta P, the differential pressure created when water rushes through confined spaces. The reservoir itself spanned 351 hectares, its surface dotted with sailboats and snorkelers during daylight hours. Dive schools operated along its shores, offering guided tours to sunken attractions like a helicopter and a bus placed deliberately at safe depths. But the dam's intake tunnels, gaping 4.5-meter-wide pipes, were strictly off-limits. Years earlier, authorities removed protective grates meant to block debris and people from entering the turbines. The grates corroded too quickly under relentless water pressure, making maintenance impractical. Christopher and Frédéric knew the risks. The local dive center enforced 2 safety zones, Zone A and Zone B, each with a 150-meter radius around the dam. Divers were warned not to descend below 20 meters, where the roar of turbines could still serve as a lifeline, but the men had no intention of staying within limits. Under the cover of darkness, they unloaded gear that hinted at their ambitions: closed-circuit rebreathers and underwater scooters. Rebreathers, unlike standard scuba tanks, recycle exhaled air, scrubbing out carbon dioxide and injecting fresh oxygen. This allowed for silent, bubble-free dives, perfect for avoiding detection. The scooters, handheld devices capable of 2.8 meters per second speeds, would help them navigate currents. Their plan was clear: descend past 40 meters, explore the dam's forbidden intake tunnels, and document what few had ever seen. They were experts, after all, experts who believed preparation could outmatch nature's wrath. But the Plate Tile Dam did not care about certifications or confidence. It waited, silent and still, as the men slipped beneath the surface. By sunrise, it would claim them both. The Plate Tile Dam was not built to kill. Its purpose was noble: to harness the power of water for energy, jobs, and progress. Constructed in 1979 as part of Belgium's ambitious Lac de l'Eau d'Eur project, the dam transformed the Wallonia region. 5 artificial lakes were carved into the landscape, connected by a network of dams and canals designed to control flooding, generate electricity, and boost tourism. The Plate Tile Reservoir, the largest of these lakes, became a crown jewel. Families sailed its waters, children learned to snorkel in its shallows, and divers marveled at its sunken attractions. But beneath this idyllic facade lay an engineering marvel with a deadly flaw. The dam itself stretches 790 meters across the reservoir, its concrete walls rising 40 meters above the waterline. Inside its belly, 4 massive reversible pump turbines hum with mechanical precision. Each turbine stands 3 stories tall, weighing over 200 tons. During peak electricity demand, these turbines spin at 120 revolutions per minute, funneling water at a rate of 400 cubic meters per second. To put that into perspective, 1 turbine alone could drain an Olympic-sized swimming pool in under 6 seconds. When all 4 operate simultaneously, the force generated is equivalent to a freight train barreling through the tunnels. But the real danger lies in the dam's design. Unlike traditional hydroelectric dams, which release water through spillways or controlled channels, the Plate Tile Dam uses submerged intake tunnels. These tunnels, each 4.5 meters wide, act like straws, sucking water from the reservoir into the turbines. The problem? Water does not discriminate between debris, fish, or humans. Anything near the tunnel's mouth risks being pulled into the vortex. In the early years, engineers installed protective grates over the tunnels. Made of reinforced steel, These grates were designed to block large objects while allowing water to flow freely. But the dam's operators quickly discovered a grim reality. The grates corroded at an alarming rate. Constant exposure to high-pressure water, combined with vibrations from the turbines, caused the metal to warp and fracture. Maintenance crews replaced the grates every 2 to 3 months, a costly and dangerous process requiring divers to weld new barriers underwater. By the late 1990s, officials abandoned the grates entirely. The risk to workers outweighed the benefits, leaving the tunnels exposed. This decision haunted the lake's safety protocols. Dive schools and recreational centers plastered warnings across their facilities: stay within Zone A and Zone B. These safety zones, established in 2002, created a buffer around the dam. Zone A spanned 150 meters from the dam's eastern face, while Zone B covered the same radius to the west. Divers were prohibited from descending below 20 meters, a depth where the turbine's vibrations could still be felt as a low, ominous hum. Yet the dam's true threat remained invisible. Delta P, or differential pressure, is a phenomenon rarely discussed outside engineering circles. It occurs when water moves from a high-pressure area to a low-pressure one, creating suction proportional to the pressure difference. Near the Plate Tail Dam, Delta P could exert a force of over 10,000 kilograms per square meter. To visualize this, now imagine 10 cars. That is the crushing grip of Delta P. The danger escalates with depth. At 20 meters, the ambient pressure is 3 times that of the surface. At 40 meters, it quadruples. For divers, this pressure affects buoyancy, breathing, and cognitive function. But for the dam, it amplifies the suction near its tunnels. A diver venturing too close would not merely be pulled inward, they would be accelerated to speeds exceeding 30 meters per second, faster than a sprinting cheetah. Local authorities downplayed these risks. Brochures advertised the reservoir as family-friendly, emphasizing its snorkeling trails and picnic areas. Dive instructors casually mentioned the dam in safety briefings, treating it as a distant landmark rather than a lethal machine. Even experienced divers like Christopher and Frederick underestimated its power, believing their skills could outmaneuver physics. But on the night of January 4th, 2024, everything changed. Christopher Godet and Frederick Pochet did not arrive at the Plate Tile Reservoir on January 4th, 2024 by accident. Their dive was calculated, deliberate, and months in the making. Both men had spent years exploring Belgium's underwater caves, quarries, and shipwrecks, earning reputations as meticulous planners. But this dive was different. It was not about discovery, it was about defiance. The decision to dive at night was strategic. By 5 p.m., the reservoir's bustling surface had quieted. Sailboats retreated to docks, children's laughter faded from the beaches, and dive instructors locked up rental gear. Under the cloak of darkness, the dam's turbines loomed like shadowy sentinels. For Christopher and Frederick, the cover of night offered 2 advantages: secrecy and silence. No bystanders would question their advanced equipment, and the absence of daylight would mask their descent into forbidden depths. Their gear selection revealed their intent. Traditional open-circuit scuba systems, which release bubbles with every exhale, were too conspicuous. Instead, they opted for closed-circuit rebreathers, a technology favored by military divers and underwater photographers. Rebreathers work by recycling exhaled air through a chemical scrubber that removes carbon dioxide, then injects fresh oxygen from a small tank. This process eliminates bubbles, allowing divers to move undetected, but rebreathers are notoriously unforgiving. A malfunctioning sensor or a missed calibration can flood the system with toxic levels of oxygen or carbon dioxide, leading to unconsciousness within seconds. Christopher and Frederick were no strangers to the risks. Both had undergone rigorous training to earn their closed-circuit certifications. Frederick, in particular, had taught rebreather safety courses for years, drilling students on emergency protocols. Yet on this night, they bypassed standard safety checks. Witnesses later reported seeing the men skip the pre-dive buoyancy tests and oxygen level verifications, steps considered sacrosanct in the diving community. Their second piece of equipment raised even more red flags: underwater scooters. These handheld devices, resembling oversized power tools, propel divers through water at speeds of up to 2.8 meters per second. While recreational divers use scooters for leisurely exploration, technical divers like Christopher and Frederick employ them to navigate strong currents or reach extreme depths. But in the Plate Tile Reservoir, The scooters served a darker purpose, to outrun danger. They were testing the dam, a local dive shop employee later speculated. Everyone knew the turbines were off limits, but these two thought they could beat the current. At 7:45 p.m., the men waded into the reservoir. The water temperature hovered at 4 degrees Celsius, cold enough to numb exposed skin within minutes. Their dry suits, designed for icy depths, kept them insulated as they descended. At 10 meters, the world above faded into murky twilight. By 20 meters, the reservoir's safety limit, they paused. Here, the hum of distant turbines vibrated through the water, a primal warning. Most divers would have turned back. Christopher and Frederick exchanged a signal, a thumbs down, and powered their scooters deeper. At 30 meters, the pressure tripled. Their rebreathers hissed softly, adjusting gas mixtures to counteract nitrogen narcosis, a disorienting drunkenness caused by breathing compressed air at depth. At 40 meters, the darkness became absolute. Their dive lights carved narrow beams through the void, illuminating silt swirling like ash in the current. Ahead, the dam's intake tunnel gaped, a 4.5-meter-wide maw, framed by corroded concrete. They had rehearsed this moment. Frederick's dive log, recovered weeks later, included sketches of the tunnel's layout and timestamps estimating turbine activity. The men believed the dam's turbines cycled on a predictable schedule, leaving windows of opportunity to explore. They were wrong. At 8:17 p.m., a surge of electricity demand triggered the dam's automated systems. 3 turbines activated without warning, their blades spinning to life. The reservoir's placid stillness shattered as water roared into the tunnels, accelerating to 30 meters per second. Christopher and Frederick never heard the turbines awaken. By the time they felt the current, it was too late. Delta P does not announce itself. It does not roar like a waterfall or churn like a whirlpool. It is silent, invisible, and utterly merciless. For Christopher Godet and Frederick Pochet, it became a predator they never saw coming. Differential pressure, or delta P, is the physics of imbalance. When water moves from a high-pressure zone to a low-pressure one, it seeks equilibrium with violent urgency. The greater the pressure difference, the stronger the suction. Near the plate tile dam, this force was magnified by the turbine's gargantuan appetite for water. Each of the 4 intake tunnels acted like a vacuum hose, capable of pulling in anything, or anyone, within its reach. The phenomenon is best understood through a simple experiment. Place a drinking glass over a lit candle and watch as the flame dies, suffocated by the vacuum created as air cools. Now imagine that vacuum scaled to the size of a subway tunnel, with the power to crumple steel or snap a human spine. That is delta P. For divers, delta P is a nightmare scenario. Unlike currents, which push or drag divers sideways, delta P pins them against an opening, sealing their fate. The force is exponential. At a pressure difference of just 1 bar, equivalent to 10 meters of water depth, delta P exerts over 10,000 kilograms of suction per square meter. At 40 meters, where Christopher and Frederick hovered near the dam's tunnel, the pressure difference was 4 bar. The math is chilling. 40,000 kilograms of force, enough to flatten a truck. But the divers were not thinking about math. Their focus was on the tunnel ahead, a pitch-black void framed by crumbling concrete. At 8:17 p.m., the dam's automated systems detected a spike in regional electricity demand. 3 turbines activated, their blades accelerating from 0 to 120 revolutions per minute in under 10 seconds. The reservoir's placid water erupted into chaos. The first sign of trouble was subtle. Frederick's dive light flickered as silt billowed around him, stirred by a sudden invisible current. Christopher, a few meters ahead, felt his scooter shudder, a sensation like driving a car into a headwind. Then, the world tilted. Water roared into the tunnel at 30 meters per second, accelerating faster than a skydiver in free fall. The current seized both men, yanking them backward with the force of a collapsing building. Christopher's scooter, set to its maximum speed of 2.8 meters per second, strained uselessly. It was like pedaling a bicycle against a tornado. In the span of a heartbeat, they were dragged 50 meters down the tunnel. The pressure spiked, crushing their eardrums and compressing their lungs. Their rebreathers, designed for steady, controlled dives, faltered under the stress. Alarms blared in their headsets, warning of carbon dioxide buildup and oxygen toxicity, but there was no time to react. The tunnel walls blurred past, concrete scraping against their dry suits. Frederick's camera, mounted to his chest, captured the final moments, a dizzying spin of light and shadow, the screech of metal, and then impact. The turbine's blades, each weighing 2 tons and spinning at bullet speed, were not designed to discriminate between water and flesh. Delta P incidents are almost always fatal, but not always quick. In 1983, a crab fisherman in Norway was pinned against a shrimp trawler's intake pipe by Delta P. Crewmates watched helplessly as the suction held him underwater, alive but immobilized, until his lungs filled. In 2012, a maintenance diver in Singapore was folded in half by Delta P while repairing a dam gate, his body trapped in a U-shape for hours before recovery teams could shut off the flow. Christopher and Frederick's fate was swifter, but no less gruesome. The turbines shredded their bodies before they could drown. The dam did not malfunction. It operated exactly as designed, prioritizing energy production over human life. Belgian authorities faced scrutiny for removing the protective grates, but engineers argued that even intact grates would not have saved the divers. Delta P would have pinned them against the metal bars, drowning them slowly as water surged past. In the wake of the disaster, Plate Tile Reservoir updated its safety protocols. Warning buoys now mark a 300-meter exclusion zone around the dam, and depth limits are enforced via GPS-linked dive computers. But for seasoned adventurers, rules are merely suggestions. As one local diver lamented, "You can warn people about Delta P, but until they feel that suck, that pull, they don't really believe it." Christopher and Frederick believed in their skill, their gear, their mastery of the deep. But in the end, they learned the hardest lesson of all: nature does not negotiate. Dawn broke over the Plate Tile Reservoir on January 5, 2024, casting a pale light on a scene of growing dread. Frederick Pochet's son, Julien, stood at the water's edge, staring at his father's empty car. The keys were still in the ignition. A half-finished bottle of water sat in the cup holder. Dive gear lay scattered in the trunk, untouched. Julian's calls to his father's phone rang into silence. By 9 a.m., he alerted the authorities, setting off a search that would test the limits of technology, endurance, and hope. The Belgian Civil Protection Team arrived within the hour. 10 professional divers, equipped with side-scan sonar and underwater drones, began scouring the reservoir. Side-scan sonar works by emitting acoustic pulses that bounce off submerged objects, creating detailed maps of the lakebed. It is the same technology used to locate sunken ships and plane wreckage. But the Plate Tile Reservoir posed unique challenges. Its depth, reaching 70 meters near the dam, and its murky, silt-filled water turned the search into a game of shadows. At 11 a.m., the sonar detected a cluster of debris 40 meters below the surface. Divers descended, their headlamps cutting through the gloom. What they found was haunting: a closed-circuit rebreather, its oxygen sensors shattered. A diving propulsion vehicle, its propeller bent into a skeletal twist. A torn buoyancy control vest, still strapped with a GoPro camera. The gear matched what Christopher and Frederick had used. But there were no bodies, no signs of struggle, just silence. Benoit Michel, manager of the nearby dive center, arrived to assist. "The turbines were active yesterday," he told investigators, his voice tight. "If they were pulled in," he trailed off, unwilling to voice the grim possibility. By nightfall, the search expanded. Helicopters equipped with thermal imaging cameras circled overhead, their infrared sensors scanning for heat signatures in the icy water. But thermal cameras cannot penetrate deep water, rendering them useless below the surface. The teams shifted focus to the dam's outflow channels, where the turbines discharge water into the river. If the men had been pulled through the blades, the river might yield clues. 46.5 hours into the search, a fisherman downstream spotted something unnatural caught in the reeds, a human hand, severed at the wrist. Authorities sealed off the area, and divers recovered more remains along a 1-kilometer stretch of shoreline. The body parts were mangled, stripped of identifying features by the turbine's blades. DNA testing later confirmed the unthinkable. Christopher Godet and Frederick Pochet were gone. Search and rescue diver Mathieu Renard, part of the recovery team, described the operation as like finding needles in a hurricane. The turbines had churned the water into a froth of debris, scattering remains across the reservoir and river. "We'd find a boot here, a glove there, but nothing whole, nothing that felt human." For the families, the wait was agony. Julien Pochet refused to leave the reservoir, pacing the docks as hours bled into days. In the weeks that followed, questions turned to blame. Why were there no warning sirens near the dam? Why had the grates never been replaced? instructors began drilling students on Delta P scenarios, using Christopher and Frederick's story as a cautionary tale. Christopher Godet and Frederick Pochet were not reckless. They were methodical, certified, and acutely aware of the dam's dangers. But on that January night, they chose to defy every rule. Was it hubris, a misguided belief that their expertise could outwit physics, or something darker, an obsession with conquering the unconquerable? Frederick's dive log, recovered weeks later, offered no clarity. Its pages were filled with coordinates, tidal charts, and sketches of the dam's intake tunnels. One entry read, "Current patterns suggest 8 p.m. lull. Verify." Had they truly believed the turbines would stay silent, or were they documenting the dam's hazards to force accountability? The truth died with them. What remains is a haunting paradox, the very traits that made them exceptional divers. Probably the saddest part about the plate tile dam disaster is the fact that it was completely preventable. Decades of warnings were ignored. Protective grates, removed in the 1990s, could have slowed the suction, buying precious seconds for escape. But officials prioritized cost over safety, dismissing the grates as high maintenance. Even the safety zones were flawed. The 20-meter depth limit relied on divers' self-control, a gamble in an era of viral extreme dive videos. You can't post rules online and call it safety. You need barriers, alarms, teeth. In the disaster's wake, new protocols emerged. GPS-enabled dive computers now lock divers out if they breach the 20-meter limit. Warning buoys flash red lights near the dam, and guided tours emphasize Delta P's horrors. But technology cannot curb human ambition. Months after the tragedy, a group of technical divers attempted to lay a memorial plaque near the intake tunnel. They descended to 30 meters before sonar alarms forced them back. "It's still a magnet," one admitted. "You see that tunnel, and you think, maybe." The plate tile dam still stands, its turbines humming as families sail and snorkel above. Christopher and Frederick's names are etched on a brass plaque near the shore, a small gesture against the reservoir's vast indifference. Disasters like this force a reckoning. How much risk are we willing to tolerate for progress, for adventure, for the thrill of touching the unknown? The dam holds no answers. It simply exists, a monument to humanity's ingenuity and its fragility. The water does not care. It never did.